welcome back.
A minority here.
Nice to see you. I'm going to find out how the roundtables went, and we're going to look at key conclusions from the roundtable session. I do hope that you enjoyed the practical networking exercise, also known as queuing for refreshments and lunch. Thank you for your patience. Also, thank you for your patience if you've been online. You are punctual, virtual attendees. You are on time. Thank you so much for waiting for us. That's very kind of you. So in the earlier part of our day, we had a roundtable session, or 3 roundtable sessions, that were led by 3 chairs and also an online chair as well. So I'm going to get them to say hello to you. It's going to be a very brief hello so that they can tell you who they are and their affiliation. Carlos, pick up your microphone. Please greet our audience, tell them who you are.
Oh, good afternoon. Thank you, Femi. I'm Carlos Silva Filho. I'm based in Brazil and currently the president of the International Solid Waste Association, the global hub for waste management to promote sound waste management worldwide. We've headquarters in Rotterdam, the Netherlands.
Very good. Anjali, welcome. Please introduce yourself to our attendees.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anjali Acharya. I work at the World Bank. And in my role, I oversee the global marine plastics work across the regions. Thank you.
Good to have you. Bethany, welcome. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, hello. My name is Bethany Carney-Almroth. I'm an ecotoxicologist at the University of Gothenburg in Sweden, working on plastics, chemicals in plastics, microplastics, and so on.
Thank you. And online we have Willem, who has been over the roundtable A, B, and C. So you've been multitasking big time. Will you say hello to our audience who are online, but also hello to our audience who are right here in the conference hall?
Well, hello to everyone, and it has been a joint team effort, not just me.
All right, very good. Willem, can we start with you? Because you looked at roundtable A. What do you want to report back for us, first of all?
So in the virtual session, we had a different setup. So I was moderating the overall session, and we had breakout sessions in the roundtable, so for A, B, and C. And we had discussions coming back from A, and from B, and from C. So what I picked up on that conversation was mostly that there's a lot of need for different things, obviously, because different stakeholders. We heard a lot about the need for identifying and eliminating chemicals of concerns and problematic applications and microplastics. But we also heard a lot about standardization and needed for polymer mixes, for language used, but also for labeling. So different types of things that need standardization. And we've also heard a lot there about effective common monitoring and tracking, which is needed, apart from, of course, having design rules for reuse, for recycling, for compostability, but also for alternative materials, based on a standardized LCA method. Apart from that, we need, of course, that was stated numerous times, clear, numerical, and verifiable targets on reuse, recycling, recycled content, in order to take priority actions in 2025.
Eliminating and designing for circularity was roundtable A. Bethany, in person, how did that go?
It was great. A lot of activity at the tables. I think almost 250 sticky notes were put into our mural board, so a lot of ideas that came through those discussions. And we discussed a lot of the same topics that we just heard the online groups were talking about, including ideas about terminology, what we're talking about, what is circularity.
Carry on, I'm just getting Anjali to sit back so Carlos can see you.
Okay. What we mean by essential, if we're going to talk about eliminating some products and identifying what is essential or what is necessary, polymers or chemicals or products, defining terms like toxic and hazard, how we're going to identify which products or materials are toxic or hazard, and on that same token, how we identify which are safe. So these are important words, and what kind of data are we putting into these discussions and defining these terms. So we also talked about eliminating some polymers, some kinds of products, some kinds of chemicals, including additives, and having a good look at the NIASs, the non-intentionally added substances. We also talked about standardization through the entire value chain, including designing for reuse and recycling. In terms of the treaty itself, we talked about setting very clear targets and goals with deadlines, and these should be enforceable goals where we can ensure accountability and means of measuring whether or not they're effective and efficient. We talked about science, how science plays a role here, the need for clear communication channels and transfer of knowledge. Transparency, reporting, and traceability in the entire value chain were important words. And then finally, we also talked about financing, that this is going to be an expensive transition and we need to find ways to incentivize change and to support the transition itself. Some of that maybe can be done through producer responsibility and polluter pays principles. And okay, finally, I said finally. I'm going to say finally one more time. Finally, we talked about capacity building. So there will be different needs in different places around the world, and different actors will have different abilities to address the changes that are put forth. So we need to work with education and supporting local groups and different actors throughout the value chain and in different regions in different countries of the world, and also supporting governments and communities in terms of implementing their national goals, their regional goals, and the infrastructure that's necessary to allow for these changes to occur.
As we report back from the key takeaways, the key conclusions from the roundtable session that was the first roundtable session, I will be opening up our conversation in the plenary hall and also online. So you know what we did earlier on today. Put your hand up if you're virtual, so I can see you, so that you can come into the conversation. If you're in the room, press your green microphone button. And then actually now I have 3 amazing chairs who can help me spot which number is asking to be part of the conversation, so I get some help with picking who gets to speak next. So this is a conversation for all of us. Do not be shy. Don't wait till the last 10 minutes before you jump in. I was listening to the roundtables in this room, in the plenary hall, and I could hear outbursts of applause. What was going on? Carlos, did your roundtable get applause?
Yeah, it was kind of a very rich and demanding exercise. Demanding, I would say, brain and also physical. So I think that at the end we were all exhausted. But it was really nice to participate in this experience, because I was kind of reflecting that if we all had the sensation that every table were kind of a microcosm of the broader negotiation process that we are just about to enter. So it was kind of very, very interesting feeling to be there, to be moderating, and to see that all the participants in every table were engaging into discussion and bringing their ideas and their positions to this debate, and also feeling that we are all contributing to the major goal that we are looking for, which is the legally binding global treaty on plastic pollution. There are several emerging ideas that had come from the Roundtable C. Our guiding question one was, what are the actions required to manage plastics that cannot be reused or recycled? So it was more an end-of-pipe approach. And 2 major channels were minimization, so provide a scientific assessment, inventories, and data monitoring, and consider elimination solutions according to a list of non-essential items. And the other major topic was remediation, and here ideas came on structuring EPR schemes, financing instruments and funding mechanisms, mostly from private sector, develop new technologies and innovations to deal with the different materials, ensure all infrastructure and sound waste management following the waste hierarchy are in place, and define the role of the private sector in terms of legacy issues. As cross-cutting topics, what we had was like behavior change and education, and also the enforcement of Basel Convention. So we can see a broad range of topics, but very rich, and I'm sure that the mural we had is really, really full of other contents to be explored.
And I should say that, Carlos, your roundtable was waste minimization and remediation. I think we kind of guessed from the takeaways, but just a good reminder. Bethany, what did you just whisper to me? Say it on your microphone.
I said 65.
65? I feel like we're playing bingo. 65, hello.
Sí,
Number
hola.
65, 6 and 5. Please join our conversation.
Gracias, muy amables, muy buena tarde para todos. Silvio Ruiz, reciclador colombiano de la Alianza Internacional de Recicladores. Nos interesa muchísimo que tanto el foro como el trabajo de la INC reconozca el papel de los recicladores, su contribución histórica de más de 80 años a la minimización de la contaminación por plásticos en el planeta y tenga en cuenta una transición justa para poder continuar desarrollando nuestro trabajo, ayudando a limpiar nuestro planeta, conservando nuestras fuentes de trabajo y dignificando la calidad de vida de los recicladores en el mundo. Los recicladores estamos presentes en este evento y pretendemos continuar en la construcción colectiva de este tratado para garantizar que no solamente las empresas de gestión de residuos, las empresas de comercialización y transformación de residuos están, sino también las comunidades de recicladores organizadas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Muchas gracias. The gentleman was talking about recycling and recycling community. All right, so let me just move on, because I'm going to get all of the reports back and then come back to the audience. But we'll take turns, and then also online as well. William, you also talked about waste management, recycling. What did you get from our online audience that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, I think I have to agree also with Carlos. Behavioral change was mentioned many times. Also to make sure that plastics can be seen as valuable because they have value at the end of the life. But also having a holistic approach was mentioned quite some times. So, for instance, for small island developing states or local communities, it's quite important to have some kind of support for the more remote areas, but also the mention of youth and the global south. Those regions which are being impacted the most, they really need some more support than what they have now. Ring fencing of taxes was mentioned, but also on the whole chemical recycling discussion, there was mixed feelings, quite some negative sentiment on how you could control chemicals of concern, which impact human health. So mostly transparency, accountability is a common concern. That was being stressed a lot, which could be tackled maybe through more closed loops or value chain integration. So you could maybe only produce as much as you can take back from the market. Those kind of initiatives were mentioned, but that's also because in the virtual roundtables we were very much focused on, the framing was to be a solutionist. So to not think about barriers, but really we have so much knowledge and expertise, not just online, but also I'm sure in Uruguay, there are so many knowledgeable people. Please use your knowledge and skills so we can build on it. And that's how we got to a lot of suggestions for solutions and for existing frameworks to build on. So that was typically we didn't get applause, but we did get a lot of energy in the online rooms. So that was the sentiment from breakout session C.
Anjali.
So we had a fantastic group of people who almost seemed to be competing for the maximum number of post-its. I know, Bethany, you said you had about 250. In our estimation, I think we got 2,000, but may have been because...
Are you exaggerating?
It could be, because it felt like that.
All right.
But I wanted to acknowledge my co-moderator, Lorenz, because between him and I, we were sorting out the mess of posted, but fabulous ideas. So there was a huge wealth of knowledge. There was considerable conversations across the table with all the stakeholders. What was interesting is the first session was before lunch, and the views that came up were not so divergent. The second session, which my friend Kristen will be talking about later, it seems there were a lot of divergent views. So I don't know what happened at lunchtime. In the initial part, the main question was really what are the actions required to achieve circularity in practice and close the loop, and how would your institution network contribute, right? So from the vast wealth of information, we categorized them into 5 areas. So it was on design, infrastructure, policy, knowledge, and inclusion and governance. In these areas, what really struck up was the overwhelming focus on policy, and it made sense. We're talking about how do we use policy levers to be able to direct design, to be able to direct infrastructure choices, investment choices, and these range from EPR to standards, etc. There were design elements which were asking to focus down on certain types of polymers and substances to be regulated. There were some strong opinions about the kinds of technologies that should be adopted and should definitely not.
How strong were those opinions, Anjali?
Shall we say they were strong, but not rude.
Okay. Do you want to characterize some of them? Because we didn't get a chance to be in all of the roundtables. So when you say strong opinions, how would you share that with us?
So I don't have the full feed of them, but there were sort of some of the things that said, do not consider compostable plastics. There were others that said, please explore chemical recycling, right? So they were going in different directions, and this is why the Multi-Stakeholder Forum is so important, because it brings these different perspectives. We had the gentleman who spoke earlier from the informal sector who made a very impassionate plea about the livelihoods, right? And we sort of remarked about how in the opening plenaries there was the issue raised about the creation of jobs that Sheila had brought up, and Jyoti had also brought up the creation of jobs, that is the potential that would come out of these plastic transitions, and it's important to take into account the informal sector. Oh, closer to the microphone. Okay.
I'm just going to ask our chairs on the stage, would you work the microphone even closer, like you're about to burst into a song, right near to your mouth?
All right.
Because then we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, and then I already mentioned about governance and inclusion, and this is where there was a lot of points that were raised about including both the informal sector as well as other vulnerable groups. Education was also mentioned often, not so much behavior change, but it was more put in the light of education, training, and capacity building. So these were sort of the first part. And the second part, it went a little bit further on, you know, what should be included in the specific instrument. And here we had points on the scope, you know, including on considering the timeline and customizing targets for countries. You know, we have a wide range of countries with different socioeconomic and plastic contexts. So how would this treaty accommodate for those differences? There was a wealth of information on measures, on very specific measures relating to policy aspects, you know, all different types of measures. What came up, interestingly, not in the first part of the question, but in this one, was financing. And I suspect that will take a larger voice as we move this forward, is who is going to pay for the financing? How is the financing going to come about? How do we bring public and private sector financing? Would there be a funding mechanism? How would that be run? Several options were put together, and this is all captured in our board. Thank you.
Did this feel like a different kind of process as you were sharing your round tables, Bethany?
Different from what? Yeah.
That's a good question. Your question back to me is a good question. It's like, how do you get an agenda that multi-stakeholders are happy with, that they feel they've contributed to?
Yeah, I think this was a very important day because it did make space for a lot of voices, for a lot of different people from different sectors to come into the room and to have their voice be heard. Everyone had equal access to the mural boards and could put their ideas up there, and that's very important. And I think it's equally important that the outcome of today is fed into the plenary and the INC negotiating committees, as today's work was non-negotiating. So to make sure that this is clearly communicated and that these ideas are coming into the main room, right? I think that's very important. And I think there was a lot of discussing, and I don't actually know if there was any disagreements or arguments at the tables during my session, to be honest. So I'll put that question out to the audience if any of you want to report back maybe on frictions that occurred or disagreements on different ideas. So I'll let that one lie out there in the room and see if anyone wants to tell us about some questions that maybe created some disagreements.
Anjali, we have a question.
I think it's number 180 that wins the next question.
180, thank you.
My comment is, how could you say there was equitable inclusion when so many tables were empty and therefore didn't allow for proper inclusion, especially amongst the most affected?
That's a good question. Does somebody else in the audience want to help me answer that question?
So maybe from the organizer side, why were some of the tables empty?
I'm going to move on, and as we have our discussion, if you have ideas and thoughts about that, please bring them in. I don't have an immediate answer for you, which is, as in life, we don't always have all of the answers. But if we're having that discussion, if you're online, if you're in the room, if you have ideas, please let us know. One of the things that I was really relieved about was that when we signed up as a conference, not everybody signed up to the round tables, and then we had an overflow room, and not everybody was able to get into the round tables. By the time we started the round tables in the conference, everybody was able to literally have a seat at the table. But in terms of the diversity, I can't answer that question, but I'm going to leave it open as an open question for us all here.
If I can just add and ask back to the lady who asked the question, if there are certain groups that you feel were not included or invited, it is an opportunity to raise it up with the organizers to make sure that their voices are included in some manner or the other. If they weren't, they happen not to come to this INC. From what I know, from the breadth of representation, at least in our session, there seem to be most of the stakeholder groups represented, types of stakeholders. Thanks.
If I
and
may,
also, you actually asking that question is feedback to the organizers as well. They hear that, and it will be on record.
No, and if I may add to that, for me, is like the perception in room C was the same, that all major groups were represented there, and we had also this participation online. And I remember that we had a briefing session before this event. I think it was late last week, and we had like a breakdown information in terms of registrations, and there were like several different profiles registered to the conference. So I think that the representation has been there, and I would endorse, like, if anyone here knows any kind of organization or group in particular that weren't able to attend either in person or online, the process is just starting now. This is the INC1. We have like a major path ahead of us, and I'm sure that all of us and others will be able to contribute to this process.
I agree. There was also lots of room to join online. I know that lots of diversity was there, at least online, for the people who couldn't be joining in person. And we've had quite a broad range of stakeholders present online.
While we have you, Willem, can you tell us about circularity in practice? Because, of course, you're also overseeing that roundtable as well, and that's the last report back from our virtual audience. What can you share with us about how you discussed that?
What we heard a lot is, yeah, of course, there are some overlaps with the others, but what I noted down for section B is that it was important to be somehow controlling plastic production and exports of plastic products or materials or waste. A region needs to have infrastructure that is fit for purpose if you export a product towards that region. The need for economic instruments was highlighted a lot, so having a tax, for instance, on landfills or burning, tax on virgin plastics, extended producer responsibility was mentioned many times, either with a deposit return scheme or in other formats. It could also be a polluter cleans principle, not polluter pays. There was a need to be led by science, which we always hear. We try to listen more to science, of course. I think that's highly needed. And to again have that support, to support infrastructure that's fit for purpose. There's a whole discussion on a ban for unrecyclables or maybe a ban on single use. And at least there was also a lot of mention on reuse. So circularity in practice should have at least big targets on reuse. So how do you do that at scale? For now, there seems to be a lacking infrastructure for reuse. And a good solution could be a standardized, harmonized system across retailers and brands. So those were some of the solutions mentioned there.
All right, thank you. Online, I'm going to spend more time focusing on you, so if you're still with us, which would be great, put your hand up and then you can contribute. It doesn't have to be a question, because these are chairs who are chairing your conversations, but it can be a comment, something about the process, feedback, what happens next. All of that is very welcome. This part of the session is very much part of the discussion and coming back to us about what worked, what didn't work. What didn't work, Carlos?
Well, I think that we needed more time to digest the number of contributions we received. I don't think that our Room C received the 2,000 contributions reported by our colleagues from Room B, but that it was a lot. And I think that we need, and this is something that we commented at the end of our session, that the mural will be available for those who want to look at it at a later moment, to extract more information from there. And I think that this is something that should be included and also considered in the upcoming steps of this process. But I think, like, in terms of what didn't work was really this kind of like how to make it possible to bring or to prepare this summary that we are just presenting in such a short time length, because it was very, very consistent and very rich. And I can say that in Roundtable C, we didn't have that many disagreements. I think it was more kind of a flowing discussion into the contributions that emerged as the main topics from the table.
Anjali.
What didn't work? One word, Wi-Fi.
Oh, that is such a good response. How slow was it?
In the beginning, I think we were panicked because a lot of people, a lot of facilitators were not able to access the mural boards. But I have to say everybody soldiered on, and thanks to the UNEP organizers and others who are working in the IT, they came to our rescue and created new Wi-Fi codes, very quickly, and we were able to get going. And I think because of that slight delay, everybody was so much more committed to putting the post-its, and that's why maybe we got the 2,000 or so.
This is like organizing this is a huge job. So practicalities like networking over coffee that might take longer than half an hour and working around the Wi-Fi, these are practical concerns that make the sharing of ideas more challenging, but they're easy to fix. Bethany.
I had the same two issues that were mentioned by my co-chairs. We also had Wi-Fi problems, obviously, so there were some technical difficulties getting started. And I think in terms of the amount of ideas that came out and trying to summarize those in like this many notes in just this afternoon was difficult. I think the text will warrant going through more, and I'm happy to know that they will be available online for reading later, so we can really dig more into the ideas that were there. It was maybe not 2,000, but 250 ideas that were put up, and just grouping those and trying to really understand what came out of our conversation will be important. I think that warrants more time.
Rob Wheeler. Hello, Rob, online. What do you want to share with us? Just going to wait for Rob to realize his question's up. Hi, Rob.
I'm Rob Wheeler. I represent the Global Eco-Village Network. I've participated in CSD and HLPF for 25 years and in UNAA for the past several years. I'm particularly interested in our advocacy efforts and what we're able to accomplish as a part of the outcome. We know that civil society is always much more ambitious and much more realistic than our governments about truly solving our problems and implementing the agreements. So I would like us, as the process goes forward, to focus specifically on how we can take effective advocacy actions and do the best job we can to drive governments to more ambitious solutions. I'm particularly interested at the later stages of the process, but I think we need to start thinking, need to be as ambitious as possible. Whatever is the very best ideas, put them on the table. But as we move forward, we're going to have to think about our priorities, what truly seems achievable and what doesn't seem achievable. And that's going to be a very challenging conversation with us, because we would all like our governments to do than not. So I think we're going to have a...
Rob, I'm going to leave it there because you're cutting out, but we really get the gist of what you were saying. Thank you for contributing. I'm going to go, oh, Rob, one quick thing. What's your affiliation, Rob? Can we get Rob just to say his affiliation? I'll make sure I pass that on to you. Lucia Kirchner. Hello, Lucia. What's your affiliation? Welcome to the discussion. Lucia. Just waiting for Lucia to join us. Takes a little moment. Lucia, will you tell us your affiliation? And then go ahead. I may well come back to Lucia in just a moment. When you were reporting back to each other, were there parts of your roundtable discussions that you feel, oh, it sounded like Angeli's, or it sounded like Bethany's, or it sounded like Willem's? Did you hear that? Did you hear similarity, or did you hear a big difference? Because obviously the topics were different.
Well, I didn't see that many difference. Because as far as I remember, room A and room B were more focused on circularity. And our room was focused on waste minimization and remediation. But listening to Bethany and to Anjali, I feel that the contributions came kind of on the same sense and the same directions. And when we are talking, for instance, the second question was what should be included in the instrument. So what we had from our room is kind of like a harmonized standards for products, targets, and definitions, financing instruments, education and awareness raising, exchange of best practice and knowledge, and harmonization of legislation and implementation by all sectors. This, I think it's very important. The tables highlighted not only by governments, because this agreement is not to be implemented only by governments, but by all sectors. Some special attention to the small islands, developing nations and rural communities, and also, last but not least, and considering the contribution we had from the floor, the inclusiveness, that it's very important to ensure social inclusion and the workers' conditions in order to have it as successful as needed. So I think that we heard it from Bethany and Angeli, so kind of harmonized contributions that, in my perception, make it even stronger, the results of this forum.
Angeli.
Can I add to that, maybe?
Oh, yeah, please, go ahead.
Because I think they are quite similar. They are linked, of course. The value chain is linked. And if you want to have a circle, there's no beginning or end. So you need solutions that fit in all three. What we have seen is that the challenge for us, if you have something that didn't work, is that it all stays very generic, of course. You have limited time. And I think the devil is in the details. So we'll see once we move ahead if we can get further alignment like there was today, all this solution-minded people to really listen to each other and build on each other's knowledge so we can have a harmonized approach in reaching targets. And I think that's going to be the challenge moving forward.
All right, in the last 5 minutes of this feedback and key conclusions from the first round table sessions we had, I'm going to do the equivalent of walking around the room with a microphone, because I have a little table here which shows me where you are and where you're sitting. So let's see if this works out. 1 second. Okay, 43. Good afternoon. How are you? Press your microphone. Hello, sir. Number 43. Oh, and then we will come to you, which I think is 44. So let's do 83. 83 is green. All right. It's red now. Good afternoon. So you're turning around, but the microphone is live in front of you. Fantastic. Give me your feedback from the first session earlier today. Go ahead. In 30 seconds. This is exciting. The tension is building in the plenary hall. Go ahead. We have a red microphone. Whoever's nearest to it, go ahead and talk into it. All right, we're going to move forward to number 44.
La première session est très importante. Surtout, elle cherche des solutions لمعالجة التلوث pour résoudre la pollution du plastique.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback.
Merci.
I'm also going to live dangerously one more time and see if I can select somebody randomly using my chart for someone to speak to. Let me see. Aha. Sir, 51. I believe that's you. Good afternoon, sir, with the glasses. On the aisle. Yes. Fantastic. I think it's probably it's 71. It's 51. 71, it's okay, you're off the hook. 51, put your hand up. This will work. Go ahead. Your instant feedback, your surprise feedback, thank you, appreciate it. Go ahead.
Should I do this? Is that okay? Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I think for me, I was concerned that we had industry, like plastic polluters in the room, and especially in facilitation roles. And I understand that there is a percentage of the participation, and it shows us officially 2% industry. But I wonder on the NGO breakdown, how much of that NGO is actually industry-sponsor NGOs. So I think I would like to see more transparency around what's the actual representation of the industry in the room. And ideally, also, I would like to see just that we are not including the polluters into this conversation. Thank you.
You see what happens when I randomly pick somebody from the audience? Do not hold back on me, Plenary. This is our conversation, time to have a conversation, so do not make me come out there and drag you into the conversation. Please do it willingly. It's really helpful to have that. Anjali, some thoughts. Obviously some applause in the audience. We would like to know where some of the plastic industry, where they are, and so that it's very transparent.
Well, I think the whole premise behind the setting up of this multi-stakeholder forum was to hear different voices. And so in that regard, and from what I understand from the INC Secretariat, there was considerable thought that was put together in the organization of the different tables, so they represented different stakeholders, in the assignment of facilitators, so they represented different stakeholders. There were 20 tables in each group, so I'm sure they have the statistics in terms of how they spread it out, but I can just tell you that even when I'm from the World Bank, when we offered on one of the ones to facilitate, it was not the one that I was assigned. So it was done very deliberately with the point of view of getting diverse voices. So I think we all collectively know there is a lot of different stakeholders who bring different perspectives, including industry. And I think it's important to be at the table, to discuss it through, to talk it through, because they do need to be at the table. Everybody needs to be at the table to bring their perspective. Only then will the treaty actually be successful, because it would then be able to address the different perspectives that these stakeholders are bringing.
You're
Thank
so
you.
diplomatic, but do
I
you
am.
still think if the plastics industry is in the room, in the space, that they should identify themselves?
What do you mean, identify, like who they are?
Everybody knows. First thing, earlier on today, one of our attendees made an analogy between tobacco and plastics. I see that analogy, and it would be helpful, perhaps, to know whose industry, so you know how to have a conversation.
Yeah, I think
so.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to say, I think everybody's identified on their badges.
Okay.
So, and I think all the facilitators, at least in session B, they introduced themselves as well as their affiliations. So I think everybody was aware, at least around the table, as to who is there. I mean, I know, for example, I think one of the groups had Greenpeace, somebody from Greenpeace as a facilitator, another one was, I think, Mindaru Foundation, another one. I mean, there's a whole group of them. So I don't think,
right.
But I'm not speaking on behalf of the INC Secretariat who's organized this. Maybe this is a question they could take on. But from what I saw, I don't think there was any lack of transparency, but maybe there was, some people may have felt that way. Yeah.
Carlos, Bethany?
Yeah, I think that the name of this forum, or the name of this day, is the Multi-Stakeholders Forum. And we must consider that the industry is a stakeholder in the process. It's not the only one, and might not be the prominent one, but it's a stakeholder, together with the academy, together with NGOs, together with all other interested parties on it. And I don't see any kind of sense if they hide behind other institutions. Because if we are here to have a dialogue, if we are here to have a discussion, everybody must be on the table, presenting your arguments and your ideas, and trying to really get a kind of contribution to the process. So I didn't feel it in my room as well, but I think like if there are industry here, they are part of the discussion. And I agree with Anjali, this process and the agreement will only be successful if we integrate all voices, if we integrate all parts of the chain. If we leave anyone behind, we will be failing to accomplish with this mission. So we need to ensure that there are balanced contributions to the process, throughout the process.
Bethany?
I would just like to add to that discussion and say that moving forward beyond today, which was the Multi-Stakeholder Forum, into the rest of the negotiations, that I would like to see that there are means of making sure that the dialogues are transparent and that we are avoiding conflicts of interest. So as we move forward, I would like to keep those guiding ideas with us.
Okay. Online, Samata. Hi, Samata. Thank you for waiting. Looking forward to hearing from you. What do you want to add to our key conclusions discussion from the roundtables?
Sí, ¿qué tal? Soy Verónica Ramos, soy directora de Coplas, represento a la industria plástica en Argentina. Nuestra entidad está conformada por las materias primas plásticas, la Cámara Argentina de la Industria Plástica, Masterbatch y distintos actores de la cadena de valor. Celebro este encuentro y un poco para compartir que no estamos escondidos, particularmente nuestra entidad viene trabajando hace más de 20 años para promover el consumo responsable, la valorización de los plásticos y la economía circular. Celebramos este encuentro y también, por supuesto, las mesas que tuvimos la oportunidad de participar. Nos tocó en nuestra mesa en particular dialogar con los recuperadores urbanos, con entidades que los representan, también con entidades ambientalistas, y quiero decirles que estamos al encuentro y creemos también que podemos ser parte de la solución. No hay una única solución, puede haber varias, y que cuenten con nosotros para trabajar. Así que bienvenido y celebro este encuentro. Gracias.
Thank you. Samata, what is your affiliation? We are going to move on to, let me just see if I can get Yuba Biaga Dowdy on our discussion, into our discussion online. Please would you introduce yourself and tell us your affiliation and join the discussion. Just waiting for that to happen. Hello, we hear you. Thank you. Go ahead. You are, we hear your sound, you are live. Go ahead. Let's try one more time. We may be having a network issue, so we will come back to online. Online, thank you for your patience. Really appreciate that. I am going to let you, wonderful roundtable panel, I'm going to keep the conversation going, but I'm not going to keep you on stage, because I'm going to switch you out so you can have a rest, and then let the chairs for roundtable 2 come on stage, because otherwise you are going to be here till 6:30. So I'm going to allow the chairs for roundtable 1, A, B, C, and online. Thank you so much for reporting back. It's a really hard job. I think it's the hardest thing from the whole of the forum to sort of crystallize and summarize what happened. As an experience, Carlos, just in a sentence.
Sorry if I didn't.
Your experience in a sentence.
Oh, wow, my experience was really amazing, this exercise, to kick off the INC procedure for the treaty, and I cannot leave the stage without expressing my gratitude to my co-chair, Jody Palm from UNEP, and for all the participants in the room. So really amazing kickoff of the INC.
Anjali.
Fantastic and mind-blowing.
This is a fantastic experience, and I'm so thankful for everyone's participation, and I'm really happy with the ideas that we put up there on the board, and I hope we can carry those into the negotiations going forward.
Thank you so much, not only for chairing the round tables, but then coming on and sharing your experience, answering the questions, engaging with our attendees. Really appreciate it. Please have a rest and take a chair. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so I know there are questions in the room and still questions online, as long as we can make the Wi-Fi work, which I'm sure it will, for the last part of our discussion. And we are going to be looking at roundtable number 2, the second session. And in that session, we were looking at multi-stakeholder action. So if you were one of those chairs, we've actually got 4. Can you please come on stage? All right, come on stage right now. I'm looking for you. I'm going to announce you. Aaron, hello, come and join me. Kristen, please come onto the stage. Corbett and Marta, thank you so much. These were chairs for the second round table that happened during the day. Please go ahead and sit down. Fantastic. You can sit here, actually. Very good. Thank you so much. Come up to the stage. Appreciate you. And Kristen, hi. Come and join me. Thank you so much. Come and sit on the stage. Take a seat. I know we still have questions in the room. Don't forget your questions. I'm coming back to you in just a moment. All right. So, Aaron, hello. Thank you so much. Take a seat. Do you all see your microphones? All right, do you all have one? All right, great. And as you're sitting in the audience, you know you need to put your microphone very close to your mouth so that we can all hear you very well. Marta, will you say hello to our audience? Tell them who you are and your affiliation, please.
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Marta Lopada. I'm here with Ocean Plastic Leadership Network. I'm very excited to be part of this session.
Thank you. And Kristen, hello.
Hello, I'm Kristen Hughes with the World Economic Forum.
Hello, I am Kabir. I coordinate the International Alliance of Waste Pickers and and coordinate the Asian outreach. Sorry.
Good evening. Aaron Kecha is my name, from Center for Environment, Justice and Development, an NGO based in Kenya. We work on issues of chemical and waste, specifically environmental justice.
All right, great. And that microphone as close as you can, even like you're eating it like an ice cream. It's that delicious. All right, one of the things that came out of our roundtable sessions was the idea of what a multi-stakeholder forum is. What is the purpose? How does it work? Did any of you chairs get that question about how does this process even work? Aaron, go ahead. Can you share?
There was the question of the governance and who should be in and who should be out. And there was also the question of what do you do? Can we influence the decision? Is it a formal mandate or an informal mandate? So these were the questions which came out in our group.
Did you get the questions and the answers?
So some of them did answer it themselves. They said that there needs to be some sort of accountability of the member states to make this forum work. So that answer also came from the floor.
If I could add to that, I completely agree. We also had a question on what is the multi-stakeholder forum and what value does it bring. And I would actually, in what I said to the team, is I would pledge that it's whatever we can make it be. And so we can bring the recommendations back to UNEP, to the INC, and we can also recommend how often this should gather, if there are representatives who should be in the room who aren't already. And so again, I think the beauty of today is trying to bring all these voices together, but then also recognizing what more can be done. And so we can certainly look to improve as we go through the process.
Marta, did you hear those kind of queries and see them online?
Yes, absolutely. We saw specifically questions around defining the roles of stakeholder groups ahead of time through working groups and capacity building, making sure this is a very effective effort. And the relationship with the INC process has also been a necessity and key for those that have joined us virtually.
I feel that the second half of the day, these roundtables are really what is going to be passed on to the stakeholder day at the INC, which is on Tuesday, because it is about the agenda. And so what will you share, what can you share from those second roundtables that gives us a sense of the agenda we're working with? Aaron.
I think one thing that was almost a consensus was the element of inclusivity in terms of the stakeholders that are supposed to be represented in this multi-stakeholder agenda. And in terms of the objectives, we're looking at it as a platform that gives the voice to people who would otherwise not have had a chance to maybe air their views in the ANC process. So looking at the platform as a voice of the people who feel maybe marginalized by the ANC process, and also as a platform where best practices can be shared, where experiences can be shared, lessons learned, and basically just linking the different activities being done by the different stakeholders as a platform where they can now have a common understanding and share the experiences.
There is a green microphone right at the back of the room. I see you, sir. And put your hand up so audio knows where you are. Fantastic. When your microphone goes red, I would love to hear from you because you have a very special story to share. And I know you've been wanting to share that with this forum all day long. All right. Welcome.
Hola, yo me llamo Luis Catalano, represento a los clasificadores del Uruguay, soy uruguayo. Me gustaría recalcar el trabajo que hace el clasificador en la recuperación de miles de toneladas de plástico en el mundo, no solamente en el Uruguay, sino en todo el mundo. Por eso me gustaría felicitar a los clasificadores de todo el mundo que hacen lo mejor para que este impacto ambiental no sea tan fuerte como es ahora. Digo, yo me parece que tanto gobiernos del mundo como empresas grandes, si ponen un poquito de cada uno, podemos hacer este mundo un poquito mejor. Así que era para recalcar eso nomás y reconocer a los clasificadores que tanto hacen por el medio ambiente.
Kristen, articulate your applause. Your applause. Your applause.
Well, actually, what I would like to do is congratulate the gentleman who just spoke, because we sit here and talk about the circular economy and we won't get there without the sorters. And they're a very key aspect, and they definitely should be recognized. And I really appreciate that he's here today to tell that story. And I think it's really important for the rest of us to also work on telling those stories and ensuring that the informal sectors and others are definitely a part of this process. So again, as Anjali was talking about, there was definite energy in our room, in room B, and we did have some informal sectors represented, and I think it's fantastic that we can get that perspective included in these conversations. So thank you for being here today, and thank you for that wonderful story.
Muchas gracias. There's a microphone that is green there. Is it green because you are about to speak, sir? Just there. Yes. Yes. Fantastic. Okay.
Hello to everybody. Rodolfo Beltran from Earth Day Network. I want to congratulate all the roundtables, A, B, and C, and stress something that Carlos Silva mentioned about environmental and climate change education and training. I think that's a cross-section of all the downstreams, that are for the treaty in plastics, is present in A and B and C. So, and that's also an immediate action that many of the civil society and the stakeholders could take in the short range. Thank you so much. I will appreciate your comments.
Who wants to pick up? Marta, go ahead.
Yes, on the capacity building from education, we saw that also as a highlight for the virtual forum, specifically in the context of the multi-stakeholder agenda moving forward. The education has been considered needed as much as for the forum, as for everything in between and afterwards, and we're hoping for that to be included.
At the back of the room, I see a hand waving. Is your microphone green? It is, and now it's red. Welcome.
Hola, buenas tardes. Marimari Compulamián, ese es el saludo del pueblo mapuche, el pueblo originario legítimo propietario del territorio que habito en el sur de Chile. Soy miembro de la Red de Acción por los Derechos Ambientales, una organización ciudadana de Temuco en el sur de Chile, Y sobre el tema de la gobernanza y este foro de multiactores, me pregunto cómo vamos a abordar la disparidad de poder que existe entre los multiactores que participan en este foro. Es muy distinta la participación de un sector industrial que tiene mucho poder, muchos recursos para participar en persona, ¿cierto?, para asistir. Tiene además muchos contactos con los gobiernos, muy distinto a la participación de una organización ciudadana que tiene muchísimos menos recursos, menos posibilidades, por lo tanto, de participar en persona. Por ejemplo, se nos preguntaba qué nos parecía tener una reunión de multiactores entre los INC, pero eso sin recursos que apoyen la participación de la ciudadanía, de los recicladores de base, por ejemplo, solamente va a significar incrementar las brechas que hay entre los distintos actores y los distintos grados de poder que tienen. Además, me gustaría me gustaría en verdad comentar que me parece importante que exista una representación de todos los sectores en estas discusiones, incluyendo la industria, pero siempre y cuando la industria no tenga una posición negacionista frente al problema, que es lo que yo vi en mi mesa, una posición negacionista de la industria sobre el problema de los aditivos tóxicos en los plásticos, sobre la necesidad de poner un límite a la producción de plásticos y que se detenga el crecimiento de la producción de plásticos, cuestión fundamental para abordar este problema. Esas son las cuestiones que quiero plantear. Gracias.
Kabir, thoughts?
Quick thoughts. I think the question of power relations will always be there in front of us, and it needs to be defined. If we are putting everyone on the same platform, but people are not, like you're putting Amazon versus a waste picker in Chile against each other and asking them, it's something which I don't know whether I can provide the answer, but this forum has to think about it. And this was put in front of us, that these relationships may demean. And sometimes there will be expectation from people who are, say, waste pickers and others to make a compromise, and not the other side. So this is a very important point which was made on the floor today.
For this second roundtable session, Aaron, were you going to say something? Go ahead.
I think the issue also came up in our group, and there was also discussions around that maybe the multi-stakeholder platform should be moderated by a neutral party, and that it should actually be online, so that just like the mural was today, people are free to contribute, and you can be able to see the divergent views from the different stakeholders.
For the second session, there were two words that jumped out at me. How to initiate a multi-stakeholder action agenda, and action. How and action were really important words in that second roundtable session. Kristen, talk to us about how.
Well, I think we're already hearing some of the how in the comments from the floor. I mean, a big part of the how is ensuring that multiple voices are around the room being heard and represented. I think one of the questions also that this woman has just, the representative from Chile just raised, which we heard a lot today, there was a conversation around financing these broader projects, but also financing representatives to ensure broader representation across the board. So I think there is a space for us to really think through, what do we mean by multi-stakeholder? How do we ensure that all voices are included in these conversations? And so I think the how can actually be pulled apart in a number of different ways, because A, we want that representation, but then it's also how do you take that conversation to the next level? And that was another conversation question that came up a few times today, which was, we're feeding into this process, what next? And so how do we ensure that the voices, that the comments that we're bringing are also being now brought into the INC conversation on Tuesday in a constructive, positive, proactive, and engaging way?
Marta.
Yeah, on that note, what we heard a lot during the virtual forum was specifically about defining the roles. Without defining the roles of different stakeholders, we won't be able to identify and make the Multi-Stakeholder Forum an inclusion platform, and innovating on funding specifically was another note to how, and it was kind of repeating in the beginning of the discussion till the end. So that's why I'm mentioning it already over here, because it seems like that's one of the sentiment areas that has been surfaced.
Could we, and then Aaron.
In our case, there was a specific demand of creating a repository of actions at the secretariat level, so that we know what are the actions which are taken by different actors, and this multi-stakeholder forum becomes the place where we can learn from it, from that repository.
Maybe just to add on that, because there was the issue of can the forum give formal submissions to the INC, and then follow up to try and establish whatever was in the submissions, what has been adopted and why, or what was not adopted and why, so that it can inform the restructuring of the next engagement.
Question from the middle of the room. Hello, I see you. And your microphone is now green.
Hola, mi nombre es Soledad Mella, soy de Chile, soy recicladora de base hace 17 años, represento a la Alianza Internacional de Recicladores del Mundo. Somos más de 20 millones de recicladores en el mundo y creo que para que este espacio sea realmente vinculante se requiere que también haya un equilibrio de participación, que sea equitativamente participativo y no como vimos hoy día en muchas de nuestras mesas, que solamente había mucha participación del mundo de la industria que creemos que es necesario que participe, pero que no tenga el protagonismo que ha tenido hoy día por lo menos. Y segundo, es sumamente importante que se haga inversión en interpretación, ya que nuestra mesa solamente fue hispanoparlante, no tuvimos intérprete y no pudimos participar en otras mesas. Entonces es sumamente importante, si queremos que esto sea realmente vinculante y que tengamos realmente voz y voto dentro de las decisiones, es sumamente importante que se haga inversión y se apoye a la sociedad civil como participante importante en este proceso. Gracias.
Thank you. Who wants to bounce off that comment? Thank you. Gracias. Kristen?
Well, I would say that simply as Anjali had pointed out earlier, I think that a lot of thought has already gone into the process by the INC organizers, and they will certainly take these points on board. I do think that maybe some interpretation would be supportive. I will apologize that that wasn't there. I know we had a Scottish man at one of our tables interpreting for some of the Spanish speakers in the room. So, you know, I do think something like that would probably be welcomed as we go through these INC processes in other countries as well. So, point taken.
Just a clarification. Here also there is mistranslation happening a little bit of Spanish to English. The term is waste picker in English and not recycler. It gets recycler in English. So it's some sort of, even when we are making some sort of interpretation, there should be a glossary of items with what people identify. Currently also, even in our interpretation, they're constantly translating it as recycler or sorter. There are different terms used for waste pickers in different contexts, so it can't be literally translated.
Actually, if I can build on that for a second, one of the key items that did come out of our discussion was definitions. And actually, that's a very good point right there. It's just something that, how something can be lost in translation. And so as we're thinking about some of the inputs into the INC process, whether for Tuesday or in the future, it will be really critical that we are aligned as a multi-stakeholder forum such that the negotiators can be aligned on what these terms mean. What do we mean by recycler, waste picker, informal sector? What do we mean by circular economy, for that matter, such that when we create metrics, we are all holding ourselves to that same standard and we understand what it is we're measuring and what we're holding ourselves accountable to.
When you were discussing those definitions, did you, as a round table, as a group, come to the same conclusion just in your round table?
No, we did not.
Okay.
There were quite a few, I think, actually. What was really interesting, as Anjali already pointed out, the afternoon got a bit feistier, which I really liked. I mean, we want to pull out these tensions, just like we're hearing today. And I think that we saw quite a number of different definitions or proposed definitions. And we even got into a little bit of a debate, actually, in the morning over the hierarchy of plastic And so is there a way for us to put a different value on a particular type of plastic, on virgin versus a different type of recyclability? And so I think there are a lot of different ways for us to address and come to these definitions and opportunities.
Right at the back of the room, there is a microphone that is green and it will go red any moment now. Right at the very back in the corner, by the aisle, I see you. Do you want to put your hand? Ah, there we go. Fantastic. All right, thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura Reyes. I am representing Sempre Colombia. I just want to take back some steps on the conversation and point out that we have spoken about design, knowledge, and many other factors. However, we are lacking on how do we define roles and responsibilities, and how can we integrate in a much active way consumers, given the fact that we are moving towards recycling, also including reuse, especially in Latin America. We have been tackling how to activate consumers actively in segregating at source, and we have not quite succeeded at that. We are now starting to point out the need of reuse, and that is a second challenge to bring to citizens, that we need to make sure that they kind of jump on the same bus quite quickly. That's from us. Thank you.
Thank you. Action. Kabir, what did you hear? What did you curate to share with us? The action part of getting that multi-stakeholder agenda together.
So one of the things which was pointed to us is that some of the alternative to plastics need to be discussed in this space. We need to also have these innovations which are happening in different communities where reuse, repair, and a lot of other things are done, need to be also part of the discussion which we have here. And that repository should also be there.
Any more action items for the action section?
Yes, speaking of personal responsibilities, that have also been something that has been surfaced specifically during the virtual forum. We saw a specific segmentation of how the forum actually should be structured coming up multiple times, and the structure went as follows. Policy and governance being one area, then industry being the other, and then personal responsibilities being a third. And then that was being broken down into short-term, mid-term, and long-term actions that can be taken. And that's something that came to mind listening to all of us here.
Kristen, go ahead.
You asked about action, and I think these are great points. In our room, something a little bit different was, first of all, we do have the opportunity to do something new and bold and to be ambitious and really set some high targets, taking on board some of the thoughts from today. But also at the same time, let's not reinvent the wheel where not necessary. So we can learn from things like the Basel Convention, from the Montreal Protocol, even Paris. We can learn from some of the mistakes as well along the way. And when we do look at some of those accords, have we slipped a little bit in how we're measuring and holding ourselves accountable? So the action was very much, let's set bold targets, let's ensure that there's no greenwashing and that we're much more transparent in how we measure the progress, and let's learn from those who've also come before us. And so again, building on that, I would also say something along the lines of, we also heard around science and the importance of evidence-based targets. So we're not just, again, sort of making this up as we go, but that the national action plans can really be based on information that's solid.
Okay, I'm going to go back to online. We had some trouble online, so I'm going to try again. So Yubu, if you're available, will you let us know? And I'll go to you first of all. I'm going to try again, because I'm an optimist. What would you like to share with us? Let's see. Hello. All right, go ahead. Let's see how this works out. What would you like to contribute? Introduce yourself and your affiliation. You stand by. I'm sorry we're not hearing you. Lucia, I'm going to try again. Lucia, are you with us? At the moment, your microphone is not live, but we're going to see if we can make that happen. Lucia, hello. Lucia, Lucia, hello. Introduce yourself and your affiliation. Welcome to the conversation.
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Lucia Kirchner. I'm with Hecho por Nosotros today. And I'd like to make a comment on reuse. And that means I would just really like to encourage everyone, when it comes to reuse, to really start thinking about using the product as it is right now. So I come from the fashion industry, and we do have a lot of clothes basically made of plastic. And as a very first step, we can start reusing these clothes, for example, by swapping, by rental. And that means we do not need further chemicals, water emissions to turn them into further products. And that would be my wish for today, to really build up on that, use the product as it is as a first step before further transforming it. Thank you.
Sia, you make such a good point about the clothing industry or textiles. How would you even begin to make it less full of plastic? I mean, entire fabrics are made out of plastic. Where do you start?
So that's a very good question, and we had quite a discussion about that today. I think where we have to start is really with designing. And that's the key word for circular economy, that really, when it comes to design, designers have to work with circular economy experts to think about what happens to this product after it has been purchased, after it has been used by the first person. Then it comes to giving this product a second, hopefully third or fourth life, and then at the end of the life circle, what to do with it. We talked about composting today, we talked about recycling, but in order to make that possible without causing further harm, you really, really have to start thinking about that at the very beginning, and that's the design.
Thank you, Lucia. It was worth waiting to have you in our discussion. Appreciate you being online and joining the Multi-Stakeholders Forum online virtually. Let us go to Eva. Eva, hello. When your microphone and your video is live, please introduce yourself and your affiliation and join our discussion.
Hi, my name is Evar. I'm affiliated with the King Abdullah Petroleum Studies and Research Center in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia. I'm a research fellow at the Institute. It's been a great opportunity participating in this event. In the sessions that I have been part of, a lot of great ideas were raised. But I want to just speak on the question of how to implement and take actions as it regards to a multi-stakeholder approach to tackling the issue of plastic pollution. I think the first step would have to be identifying those issues that are common across countries, across regions, where we can easily reach consensus. Like, for instance, looking at how plastics are sorted. Sorting is a very essential aspect of plastic waste management, because if you look at mechanical recycling, for instance, or other types of recycling, the efficacy of it and the quality of the product that you produce, the resins that are produced, is often dependent on how you are able to actually separate the different types of plastic materials, how efficient you are doing that. So maybe identifying what kind of standardizations can be done. If it is some kind of like QR coding for different plastic materials, or some form of braille system, or some form of like barcoding that would allow for efficient and automated identification of different plastic materials. This will go a long way with the issue of contamination, especially when you have mixed plastics, and issue of challenges that you have when you have additives as well. So I think that a lot can be achieved on the angle of sorting alone. because we all appreciate that plastics have a lot of usefulness, and the affordability of plastics as well all tie into the whole idea of sustainability, because sustainability is not only about the environmental aspect, but also the economic aspect of it as well. So we're taking a holistic approach that looks at the life cycle of all those elements, both on the economics and on the environmental, and identifying what areas can we easily reach consensus. I think
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, I think that would be great to actually reaching a multi-stakeholder agreement that is actionable and practicable. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you for contributing to our discussion. I am seeing second row from the back, a microphone that is about to go from green to red. Just stand by, and then when it's red.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಒಂದು ಅನುಮಾನ ಐತೆ ಇವ್ರನ್ನ ಯಾಕೆ ನಾವು ಟಿ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಸೇರಿಸ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. ಆದರೆ ಇವಾಗ ಪೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಮಾಡೋದು ಅಂತ ಇವಾಗ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ. ಹಿಂದಿನ ಕಾಲದಿಂದ ಪೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಬರ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪಿಕ್ಕರೇನೆ. ಆದರೆ ಎಷ್ಟೋ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ನ ಪಿಕಪ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅವರು ರೀಸೈಕ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡೋದಾಗಲಿ, ಎಷ್ಟೋ ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಕೊಡೋದಾಗಲಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಪಿಕ್ಕರು. ಆದರೆ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಟಿ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಯಾವ ಥರ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡಿ ನೀವು ಸೇರಿಸ್ಕೊಬೇಕಂತ ನೀವು ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಮಾಡಿ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡಿ ಸೇರಿಸ್ಕೋಬೇಕು.
There is a lot of confusion of who is waste picker and who is recycler and so on. So what I would suggest, and for years we have been, historically we have been controlling the pollution of plastic. So it is important that UNEA does a study and understand who are waste pickers, how we can be integrated into the treaty, and please add us to the treaty in an appropriate way.
Camille, would you mind commenting on that?
So waste pickers across the world are mobilizing themselves, and when you see the Convention on Biodiversity, it is central to indigenous people. Similarly, plastics treaty is going to be central to waste pickers' work. 60% of their income comes from recycling, from retrieving plastic. So this is why they are here in big numbers without any support from a lot of people, and they are making their points heard.
Mm-hmm. Maybe just to add on that, because there has been issues raised even in terms of consumer awareness, and from the interaction with the waste pickers who are here, you realize that they deal directly with the consumers. So when you want to raise awareness, for example, on the need to separate or segregate waste at source, they are the best people, for example, to just go door to door telling their customers on how to manage their waste.
I see two microphones, and there are two green ones in the sort of middle section, but I'm going to start with, would you put your hand up? Yes, great. Put it up high so that audio can see you, and then your microphone. We'll do you second. We'll come back to you. Okay.
Hola, soy Estela Recalde, soy recicladora. Quiero decirle, los recicladores somos los más... Los clasificadores somos los que hacemos el trabajo más duro para recatar lo que otros tiran. Nosotros dicen que somos importantes para la ciudad, el ambiente, pero eso no se parece, no se aprenda que dicen condiciones de vidas lindas para de los trabajadores. Gracias.
Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you so much. Actually, for the virtual forum, we specifically were talking about city inclusion, and maybe there is a potential there for actually engaging informal waste sector in an efficient way and engaging the cities in the multi-stakeholder forums. That's just a thought.
Kristen, what did you write down in your notebook?
How much time do we have? I've been taking notes all day. I mean, I think there's so many insights that we have been capturing, and not just in the last hour, although these have been very, very rich indeed, and it's always so important to make sure that we do hear the real stories and what's happening and the impact into everybody's lives. And so some of the things that I have written down here are what kind of impact can this treaty have? It's a question that we keep hearing from the informal sector and in such passionate way, and you think, well, what is this treaty going to achieve and how can we get there? And that is actually what I think we are trying to do through the Multi-Stakeholder Forum, and I very much applaud people bringing their voices and their stories to life, because we do want to bring those to the INC process and to the negotiators. I also love this word around the waste pickers around the world are mobilizing themselves. There's also a role for capacity building, not just for informal sector, but across the value chain on what are and Marta mentioned this, what's the definition of each stakeholder, what role do they play in this process? I do get the sense that it's not so clear right now, and maybe we need to find a way to create some clarity.
This uncertainty, is it, thank you, is it excitement, anticipation? What is possible feels huge and positive from today. Kobe, what are you thinking?
I think the kind of passion that we saw from our colleagues' side, it was very powerful. So they are hopeful that they will not be denied the opportunity. But there are things which were very specific, which came out in discussion. And our colleague was pointing just before, colleague from online, he was talking about how important it is to have QR code or some information. So in our group, we talked about labeling. Can the plastic be labeled? It is a very small action, but it helps people to identify the materials.
Joel is online. Hello, Joel. Please join us. Thank you for your patience. Just going to wait for Joel to unmute himself. Hopefully see video as well. Hello. Please identify yourself and your affiliation. Hello. Looking forward to hearing from you. Joel, are you with us? Go ahead. Your mic is live. We'll come back to Joel if we have time. In the center of the room, you've been waiting very patiently. Your microphone is green. If you wait momentarily, it will turn red. And then we can find out what you've been wanting to say to us. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Melanie Bergman, a scientist with the German delegation, and I just wanted to share something that was discussed at great length at our roundtable, and that was, again, equity, of course. We found that the representation of indigenous people was quite low here, but one voice that I haven't seen was youth. And of course, they will be inheriting whatever we will be deciding here. So they're a really important voice to integrate in this process and in a multi-stakeholder process. So I think, I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. We don't know all of the people who are online, but we did have some experience of what the online audience was bringing to the conversation. Did you find diversity there, Marta?
I would say I hope so. It's pretty hard to tell because most of them didn't have their video cameras on, and for that reason it was very hard for us to even see them and engage with them. However, they're very engaged for the mural board, so that was a great achievement to have them all participating actively.
So earlier on, I asked the first set of chairs for the roundtables what were the most challenging aspects of this multi-stakeholders forum. I'd like to ask you what were the best, unforgettable moments that you had that you would like to share with us. Do not make me have to come down into the room and ask you, but I will, so that I get your feedback, so I get a true sense of the feeling in the room. You know, they say, read the room. I'm going to try and read the room, but let me start with the moderators up here. Marta, the best part.
Well, Okay, the best part. For me, I mean, the best part was actually seeing the boards being populated in real time across virtual and in-person sessions and seeing the great amount of engagement.
I'm also going to start with the challenge because I think they loop in together. As was alluded to before, we had so many ideas and all these different sickies all over the place, and yet that's also exciting and inspiring to see so much energy and engagement and a desire to make a change. So I was really inspired by all the ideas that we saw come together on that chart.
I agree with my co-panelists. There was something which was, we started a little late and I was worried because the board was not filling up. And suddenly within few minutes, like you had so many ideas put together and you have to just like go through each one of them. The interesting part was to ask for the clarifications. Some of the places we were not clear of what ideas they were suggesting. And when the clarification was given, then you realize that how much thinking has gone into it. And when they made that one small point, it is quite a useful point for the discussion.
Yeah, I think there was basically, you could see the diversity of ideas, but the ideas were converging towards very common issues that deal with issues of around plastic waste management. So that diversity and the convergence was the best element of it.
Did you see evidence that people had come prepared, that they had their agenda, they had their points, they had their ideas that they really needed to get to the INC, Aaron?
Yes, of course, because like he said, there are elements that you are looking for clarification and you could just see that the issues were on the fingertips. So the answers came real quick, meaning that people were really prepared and ready to participate.
Marta?
Yes, absolutely. I actually participated for both in-person and virtually as a facilitator, so definitely the agendas have been set ahead of time, but I do believe having that opportunity to sit down and collaborate together gave some level of open-minded flexibility to explore.
Kristen?
Yes, absolutely. I think everybody showed up enthusiastic and most prepared with some perspective. I also, from so many different, I know we're hearing a lot of this around we need more diversity, but I thought there was a lot of diversity of thought amongst our tables, and especially when we got into certain topics like innovation and capacity building. What did that mean, and what are the layers we should pull apart to really ensure that those get driven forward? And I would say these conversations have been debated in various UNEAs, and then finally earlier this year, we had this opportunity to now have the conversation. So I do feel people came with energy and expertise and a forward-thinking approach.
Thank you. Kabir, go ahead.
So in a lot of our in the room, a lot of our friends and colleagues, we know them, some of them, and we also knew the government representatives. So knew the points they were making, and you knew where it is coming from. So it was a little sort of, meant that they also have shared it in advance with a lot of us, which was important for us in the discussion.
Online, thank you so much for being part of this hybrid conference. I see you're still chatting. You have a few more minutes left. If you want to have a question or you want to share your thoughts with us, you can do that. The same for in the room, in the last few moments of this Multi-Stakeholders Forum, for how do we think about plastics, ending plastics pollution. Any other thoughts in the room, very welcome, as I ask you, and thank you so much, chairs, for sharing. It's so hard to just boil down what happened in your round tables, but you did it beautifully. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Thank you for your service. Thanks. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Excellent job. All right, before we all go and I release you into the early evening, any other thoughts for me? Just instant. Do not even think about it. I will point to you. You will give me your feedback. Good afternoon. Hello. Thank you for bringing your water bottle with you. Nobody dares bring plastic bottles in today. Even if you've got them sneakily in your bag, I know no one is showing them on the table. Instant feedback. Go ahead. It will go red and then you'll be live. It's right here. Just keep waiting. There we go. You just wait and it will turn red, trust me.
Hello.
Right. There you go. Hello. Just here. Put your hand up so audio can see you.
One thing I found very interesting about the conversation is the intention of everyone here. I think that when you talk about a multi-stakeholder meeting, you want to make sure that you have everyone from all parts of the table. And we had a very big discussion about this, like who is a stakeholder. And one thing that we discussed about was that, you know, transparency is like the #1 key. Right. And also respectful negotiation or respect when you're talking to folks. It doesn't get us anywhere to like point fingers or be accusatory or to neglect anyone. I think that the whole theme of this is to come together to end plastics, and even from waste pickers to companies and governments, I think we all play a very important role in ending the pollution. Thank you.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for volunteering. I love people volunteering. Thank you. Just yell your number out at me because so we get the microphone. 25. 25. It works.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we hear you. Thank you. Instant feedback. Go ahead.
Well, I think this was a very good session. It's definitely challenging to have so many people and so many sectors represented and sharing their thoughts and capturing their thoughts in an exercise like today. I happen to be a facilitator in one of the tables. So also I think that what we heard a lot is that moving forward, this was the first time we were getting together. So moving forward, it will be important to ensure that we continue having participation from all sectors. We heard today lots of recyclers or sorting associations, and that was very good to hear. So yes, hopefully we can continue the path that we started today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 107.
Thank you very much. This has been a really interesting set of reflections on a full day's worth of work. It's a tremendous amount of work and contribution from everyone. I think what stuck with me was in this last panel, the idea of finding common solutions that we can implement right away and starting to build that sense of what's possible through success. Success breeds success. So thank you very much. I'm, yes, should I identify who I am? I'm Monica Medina, the Assistant Secretary of State for Oceans and Environment from the United States. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can you tell me what your number is on your microphone? What does it say? All right, put your hand up. Audio will see you waving. We'll do the low-tech version of turning your microphone from green to red. It will happen. I have faith. All right. On this side at the far end, there's a microphone that's green. Please, could you turn it red? Fantastic. Thank you, audio.
Hello. I'm from Sri Lanka. And I think a lot of discussions went on and so many ideas came up. And according to scientific research that we know, at the moment we are breathing, drinking, and eating plastics, especially the microplastics. So it's a very serious issue. So I think we need to bring the thought of most of the colleagues was that we need to bring some control over the production of plastics, at least the toxic plastics, to safeguard our health. So scientific truth is that, therefore I think with these deliberations that we will be able to bring in some productive outcomes. And I think all are interested, and most of the colleagues, most of the participants are of the view that we will be able to, as a whole, like we get together everybody and we'll solve the problem and bring up a healthy environment and for all our young generation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really... Why are you doing this to me? Did you know instinctively there were 3 minutes left? And you're going to wave your hand with 3 minutes left of an entire day? What is going to be your instant 30-second piece of feedback? Good afternoon. It's never too late. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Sam Chetton-Welsh, I'm a policy advisor for Greenpeace. I wanted to very briefly raise 2 points. Firstly, I would like to see more emphasis on the waste hierarchy in upcoming conversations, including prevention at source. So we had a good discussion of reuse today, but not limits to plastic production, and I would like us to consider that more. And the second point I would like to make is in future roundtables like the Multi-Stakeholder Forum, ensuring that NGOs have participation and can contribute to the agenda before time so that we can shape the conversation to be most effective. Thank you very much.
Thank you for... Ooh, excuse me. That was about to be a viral moment with me falling flat on my face, and then I would say, and now we're ended. All right, I'm going to close the session with a couple of bits of information that I know that you've been asking me through the day. The first question I had was about Sheila Agarwal Khan's presentation, the INC Policy Science document. It will be on our Multi-Stakeholder Forum's How to End Plastic Pollution website. It will be there, so look out for it. A couple of other things for you to do is on the INC website, there will be space for actions, your ideas for actions. That will be live later on this week. And then really, what have we been doing today? The round tables, your feedback, the summaries will go to the INC on Tuesday. That will be the multi-stakeholders conversation. I have to thank the facilitators, the moderators, the chairs, and also OPLN that made our virtual program possible. But most of all, the biggest thanks will be to you, because we can't have a multi-stakeholders forum without multi-stakeholders being in the room and online. I have one more exercise for you to do. If you're online, you can do this too. Please, can you stand up? Everybody stand up. Are you doing this online too? Great. Hold your right hand and your left hand out like this. You're doing this for yourself. And then hit your right hand and your left hand very hard multiple times. Oh yes. This is the standing ovation you deserve. You, we made history today. Thank you so much. Good night. Take care.